of you. Joe Walsh, welcome back to Uncensored. Kind of fascinating conversation there with a prime minister I doubt anybody had heard of before about a month ago. And then suddenly he's propelled onto the global stage. He's a smart, eloquent guy. But interesting that for him, the red line, not an inch of sovereignty shall pass to the United States. What did you make of it?
First off, Pierce, good to be back with you. Secondly, Pierce, great interview. Well done. How refreshing and cool is that guy? And he's 34 years old. Man, that's the first time I've heard him speak extensively. Look, I love that. And that was my biggest takeaway was back off on sovereignty. This is our country. Back off respectfully. He was utmost, respect to Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump deserves zero respect from him with the way that Trump and Vance have treated him and his people. But Pierce, that was the biggest takeaway is that, look, the United States, you've got as much military access on Greenland as you want. This isn't about military access with Trump. It's never been. He can't say that because that prime minister is too nice and decent. But this is all about Trump wanting to put his name on something and Trump financially wanting to get Greenland's natural resources. What a great young man, a great young leader.
Yeah, Andrew Wilson, we're going to come much later in the show to your conversation with Joe Rogan about my shattered hip and the life expectancy that the pair of you decided to come up with, which basically inferred.
Wait a second! I thought I was nice. I thought I was super nice.
You were actually. No, you were. Although you were the first to suggest alcohol had played a part in my downfall, and I can categorically assure you, zero alcohol had passed my lips. Which actually,
well, I mean, it would have played a part in my downfall. That's what I thought. It's like,
well, actually,
it would have been that.
Actually, a doctor friend of mine said, had I been intoxicated, I would have had a much easier fall. I'd have basically rolled, and I wouldn't have caused such damage. Anyway, we're going to come to that later because it made me laugh. Welcome back to Uncensored. It was a great interview, actually, with you and Joe. I really enjoyed that. This issue of Greenland, I mean, let's extrapolate this really to a wider worldview that Trump seemed to have, which is, I can take what I want. The United States is so big, so powerful. We have the world's biggest military. If I want Greenland, I'm going to help myself. Do you, as an American, do you feel comfortable about that kind of mindset, particularly relating to a country that is under the sovereignty of a NATO ally, which not just any old NATO ally. The Danes actually lost, I think, the third as highest number of people in the Afghanistan war, for example, when they came and fought with Americans against the Taliban per capita. I think it was the highest per capita, actually, were the Danes. So, the Americans owe the Danes a lot, and yet here you've got the president saying, yeah, I may just come and take it. What did you feel about that?
Well, I don't know exactly what the strategic reason actually is. And that's the big problem, right? Is we do know that there's a lot of natural resources there. And we know that Trump wants to buy it. We know that the United States wants to stay a global hegemon. And however it needs to stay a global hegemon, it's going to do whatever that means, right? Whether it's Trump or not Trump. In this particular case, I do think that Trump thought he could probably buy this outright, but they're not selling. As far as the memes and things like that, I don't think that's a huge deal at all. As far as I'm concerned, this is still something which is going on under negotiation. And I think he's going to try to buy it. I think he's going to try to buy it for the strategic interests of the United States. And good luck to him. Maybe it'll be the 51st state.
This is what accountability looks like. Joe Walsh is a former Republican congressman, and he just laid out exactly what's wrong with this entire Greenland situation. When he said how refreshing and cool is that guy, and he's 34 years old, man, he's talking about the prime minister who had to defend his country's sovereignty on international television. Think about that for a second. A 34-year-old leader having to explain to the most powerful nation on earth that his people are not for sale. But here's where Joe Walsh absolutely nailed it. He said even though the current administration deserves...
I've been saying from the start of this debate about Greenland, there are only 60,000 of them. You're not talking about millions of people. And I don't know how many of them would categorize themselves as wealthy or poor or whatever. I'm not sure exactly of the economic breakdown of Greenlanders. But if they were, for example, as I posited to the Prime Minister to vote in a referendum to be independent, which, notwithstanding what he said, most people think is more likely to happen, that they would vote to go independent. If the Americans made an offer, significant financial offer, to enrich the lives of each Greenlander, I could see that potentially being an option they may take.
Well, in Europe, they have healthcare, and I think that that's what a lot of people want. In the United States, you can get sick and just go broke, and that's something that Donald Trump is not willing to do anything about. But the Greenland situation boils down to the fact that the global order that was established after World War II to prevent something like that from happening again is something that President Trump is more than happy to not only disrupt, but chip away at, if it serves the interest of whoever he is working for. So the Greenland situation, in my opinion, is Trump just happily playing Risk because he likes throwing power and tough talk around. But ultimately, it's something that is going to be very damaging to the United States, to our reputation, which has already taken so many hits in the past year. And being a global power is not just about what type of force and threats of violence you can throw around. It's not about what type of money you can throw around. It's about partnerships and building trust with other leaders. And in the past year, Donald Trump has given places like the EU a lot of reason to believe that we are not a stable partner. And that's why I think a lot of those countries are going to be turning to China, and it is going to backfire for generations.
They're not turning to China.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
Lydia,
ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think
you
they're
can
going
look
to
at what
turn
they're
to
doing
China or Russia.
financially.
No, not if you look at what they're doing financially. No, the United States is still the hegemon. It's going to stay the hegemon. The EU is not going to do anything about it. There's mayors of cities here, I believe in the United States, have more than 60,000 people. You guys have TDS, and everything Trump does is evil and awful and this and that. But the truth is that this is a hegemon. It is the global hegemon. And if we want to leverage our nation in order to acquire more land in our strategic interests, we're going to do that. And the EU is not going to do anything about it. And that's the truth.
Okay. All right. Let me bring in Lydia. Welcome to Uncensored, Lydia. Good to have you on. Do you agree with that? I mean, that, a lot of people feel that talking that way about a country owned by a NATO ally is at best disrespectful, and at worst the actions of a bully, right? Somebody who just says, you know what, if we want it, we're going to take it, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, if you take a line out of Billie Eilish's book, no one is illegal on stolen land. So I think we have every right to it, according to her logic. Look, I don't think we should use military force. I don't think that's going to be happening. But look, people have wanted Greenland in the U.S. since William Seward back in the 1800s. When he purchased Alaska, he also wanted to get Greenland. Truman, once again, tried to get Greenland. And the history of the U.S. is purchasing land. The Louisiana Purchase, Alaska, the Virgin Islands, about 100 years ago, we purchased from the Danes as well. So I think it's very reasonable that Trump wants to expand his footprint. And if this is the kind of thing that he can get done, we know he loves deal making. I think more power to him. And it is an important strategic asset. Of course, it's very close to the Arctic, to China, to Russia. It's an important place to launch potentially missiles. The cool climate makes it perfect for data centers that can cool naturally. There are those rare earth minerals that right now we don't have in the U.S. So I think it would be great if we can cobble together some kind of deal that